Welcome to, on the other hand, and welcome to another episode of Divisive Definitions, a series where we take a look at political terms that are vague or deceptive, and decide what part is valid and what part is baggage. This video will be covering the terms fact check, bombshell, beginning of the end, fascist, and authoritarian, all in relation to President Trump. Also, this rendition of the scales comes from my sister, who is out of a job for the moment, and I like to think of it as the corona crazy on paper. President Trump. Everyone has an opinion on the man, and on the job he's doing as President of the United States. My opinion is mixed, and my opinion and bias are represented quite well by this clip from We the Internet.
So China just approved for Xi to be president for life, and Trump says, maybe we have to give that a shot someday.
Like, enough is enough. How do people ignore that?
I'm pretty sure he was joking.
Joking about being president for life.
Yeah. If you listen to the audio, everybody's laughing. They're clearly in on the joke.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you like Donald Trump?
No, I think there's a lot wrong with the guy. It's just this happens not to be one of those things.
I cannot believe I work with a Trump supporter.
What?
Let's get out of here, Jenny.
I voted for Hillary.
The whole video is excellent, and as usual, links to everything is in the description below. So the first of the terms that makes me defend Trump is the ever-present fact check. Now, fact-checking is important, especially for the highest office in the land, but there is so much that gets put under the umbrella of fact-checking, and I take issue with some of them. All of these examples come from NPR, because NPR tends to be the biggest and least biased news source I listen to. If you question the bias part of that, here's a link to the whole video I did on bias in the news. Anyway, this first one comes from the fact-check coverage of the 2020 State of the Union address. President Trump said the unemployment rate for African Americans has reached the lowest levels in history. The fact-check said, Trump often talks about record low unemployment for blacks, but those numbers have not translated into strong political support for him from African Americans. There were many valuable fact-checks in this State of the Union address, but this one seemed more like it could be reduced to fact-check true, but people still don't like him. For me, the related topic mentioned seems more like commentary rather than fact-checking and doesn't really seem applicable. This next one comes as a fact-check on the US's testing record when it comes to the global pandemic. Trump said, "We're doing far more testing than anybody in the world." And the fact-check says Italy is doing about 3 times more testing per capita than the US. For me, fact-checking means checking the stated facts and not disputing the stated facts with a related but different measurement. Finally, here's this one. President Trump praised Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and said he is a great governor who knows exactly what he's doing. The fact-check says, according to public health experts, thousands of healthcare workers, and a pending lawsuit, DeSantis' leadership has been woefully inadequate. NPR just fact-checked to compliment, because some people don't agree. Can you really call it a fact-check if there's nothing but opinion in it? So that's my gripe. Fact-checking is highly valuable and needed, but I don't like when other things get slipped into the category that just aren't actually a fact-check. The next set of phrases include words like bombshell, walls are closing in, and the beginning of the end, as can be seen in this montage.
December 1st, 2017, you can mark it down. This is the day that everything changed.
We begin with the bombshell.
The beginning of the end?
The beginning of the end.
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 In fact, if this were a football game, we're in the third quarter. May even be the beginning of the end.
We begin tonight with the bombshell.
Donald Trump is in a lot of trouble.
Trump is in trouble.
The president will resign.
Another hour, another bombshell.
This is a tipping point.
Trump's going down.
This president could be impeached.
I do not think the president will serve out his term.
So that was only 30 seconds of a 3-minute montage, and that montage was taken from a year and a half of coverage before all the impeachment proceedings. Needless to say, especially during the impeachment grandstanding, I was so tired of hearing people talk about bombshells and predicting that the most recent thing was the last straw and the like. Because of the constant orange man bad narrative, I find it hard to pay attention or trust media when it actually is something that Trump did that's bad. It's very much like the boy who cried wolf for me. So can we just take the rhetoric down a couple of notches on all sides? It would be so much more pleasant and informative for everyone. The final point is about calling Trump an authoritarian, a fascist, or even the quite common comparisons to Hitler. Yes, I know saying Hitler's name here on YouTube is a no-no.
You must be very brave to mention his name. Or very foolish.
Fear of a name only increases fear of the thing itself.
Needless to say, I agree with Hermione. So why do I think these terms and comparisons aren't really relevant to Trump? First, Hitler committed genocide and killed millions of people. And I feel like most people who compare Trump to Hitler or say Trump is a fascist are less interested in an accurate comparison or nuance and more interested in creating an association to literally one of the worst people who ever lived. The authoritarian label has been quite ironic of late. People accuse Trump of being an authoritarian for years, and do you know what authoritarian rulers do in times of crisis? They consolidate power and take over. And what does Trump do during a world pandemic? He gets criticized by the same people for not doing enough as the head of the government. I say all these things not as an endorsement of the president and all he does. In fact, he does many bad and immature things, and sometimes the things I have said I detest actually apply perfectly to Trump and need to be said. But he is a politician, and to pretend now that the US has always had high moral standards for politicians, or that this current president will single-handedly bring the end of the free world upon us, seems a bit over the top. As always, thanks, hope you enjoyed. And if you did, consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you'll get notified for new uploads.